Okay, let's review NXT's The Great American Bash that took place on July 30, 2023. This is actually the second time I'm recording it because the first time the file got corrupted. Okay, so let's begin. It started off with an opening video package where Cody Rhodes was a narrator. He was trying to hype up the show, and the theme here was that this is Dusty Rhodes' legacy. I guess he created the event. The NXT arena looked pretty full, pretty sold out. I was quite impressed that an NXT show looks like it could sell out this well. The production value also looked pretty high, like a proper WWE premium live event. The opening match was Tony D'Angelo and Channing Lorenzo challenging Gallus for the NXT tag team titles. Tony D'Angelo and Channing Lorenzo won. Towards the end of the match, Tony D'Angelo used a crowbar against Joe Coffey, who was managing Gallus, to get him out of the way from being distracting, and then they hit their tag team finishing move on Gallus and won the titles. We then see footage from a DreamCon event where Roxanne Perez was attacked by Blair Davenport. These two then had their match. As Roxanne Perez was making her way to the ring, her mom and younger sister were at ringside, so she was interacting with them, engaging with the fans nearby. Then Blair Davenport, wearing a hoodie, attacked Roxanne Perez from the crowd, jumped over the barricade, and that's how the match began. So this was some stipulation match, I guess, like maybe some street fight, no disqualification match, because there were weapons involved. Weapons like the garbage can, steel chairs, bull rope, even a whip was used in the end. Probably the most exciting part of the match was when Roxanne Perez went to the top rope, did a frog splash to the outside. Blair Davenport was on a table, and then Roxanne Perez went through her, and she also won the match when she did a Canadian destroyer onto a pile of steel steps. Looked pretty violent. But yeah, this match, it looked like the stakes were pretty high because the camera kept zooming in onto Perez's mother and sister throughout the match. At one point, her sister was even crying, so that was pretty interesting. We then had Baron Corbin versus Gable Stevenson. Corbin, for someone who underwent a gimmick change recently, he looks the same as before, except for new ring attire and new entrance music. It doesn't feel anything different. Gable Stevenson, of course, making his debut match. The match actually ended in a double countout as these two were brawling on the outside. I wasn't satisfied with this at that time. It seems like the fans were neither as well. They were chanting, "This is bullshit." But then these two just would not stop brawling. They kept brawling on the outside, over the commentary table. They brawled again in the ring. Security came out. Both men attacked security to get to each other. And finally, Gable Stevenson even threw Corbin through a barricade and ended up standing tall. But by this point, I thought, what? It might not have ended in a traditional way, for a debut match, but it was a pretty good ending overall. I was actually satisfied. I get that, this was Corbin's first match since his gimmick change, and, this was Gable Stevenson's first match. WWE didn't want to make either man look weak, so they didn't want either man to lose via pinfall or submission. But, ending it this way, having these two men just brawl and try to beat the crap out of each other, I think it was actually a pretty, unique way to end a match, and it actually makes for a memorable moment when you're looking back at Gable Stevenson's first match. If he turns out to be a really successful superstar and you look back to his first match that was this, it would be pretty interesting. We then got the triple threat NXT North American title match. Dominic Mysterio, accompanied by Rhea Ripley, defended it against Wes Lee and Mustafa Ali. At one point, Rhea Ripley even put Wes Lee through a commentary table, but the match was won when Mustafa Ali hit a 450 splash onto Wes Lee, and it looked like he was going to get the 3 count, but then Rhea Ripley pulled Ali out of the ring. Mysterio then did a frog splash and Wes Lee pinned him successfully and retained the title. So it looks like Ali got robbed here. Tiffany Stratton then defended her NXT Women's title against Thea Hale, who was accompanied by Andre Chase and Duke Hudson. There was one point where Thea Hale was in a pretty bad submission move, but she just wasn't tapping out. And finally, Andre Chase threw in the towel, so the referee called for the bell. This was a pretty controversial finish, but I think, it wasn't satisfying, but I think in the long run, it could lead to some decent storytelling. It doesn't make Thea Hale look weak because she didn't tap out. It also makes Tiffany Stratton look pretty strong in the long run because her submission move was so brutal that someone had to throw in the towel, which is something unique in wrestling. So a decent finish to the match, even though in the long run, potentially, even though it wasn't that satisfying. We then see a backstage segment where Dragon Lee bumps into Dominic Mysterio and Rhea Ripley. They're teasing that Dragon Lee is going to be the next #1 contender for the NXT North American title. I think this makes sense because Dragon Lee had been interacting with Rey Mysterio in the last 1 or 2 episodes of SmackDown. I could definitely see at some point as well, if Santos Escobar does win the United States title, as he looks like he's being positioned to right now, then I could definitely see a Dominic Mysterio versus Santos Escobar match, maybe a champion versus champion non-title match, or maybe a title unification match even, where it's North American champion versus United States champion, Dominic Mysterio versus Santos Escobar. I could potentially see that. Finally, we get the main event. It's Ilya Dragunov challenging Carmelo Hayes for the NXT Championship. He's accompanied by Trick Williams to the ring. It was a pretty basic main event match, but Carmelo Hayes won when he did a leg drop off the top rope onto Ilya Dragunov and retained, and that was about it. So yeah, that's a wrap for the Great American Bash. Nothing memorable about this show, nothing that great, not a bad show either, so just a pretty average show overall.